Hello, friends, and welcome back to The Perfect Rise. I am your host, Chef Kimberly Houston, and today we're diving into one of the most unexpectedly powerful movements happening in the baking world right now. If you've ever wondered how a simple idea, a bagel festival that New York somehow didn't have, turned into a global gathering that attracts thousands, elevates small shops overnight, and brings in bakers from Madrid to Honolulu, then you're in for a treat. I just got back from BagelFest, and let me tell you, this was not a typical food event. It was community, it was connection, it was creativity, and it was an inside look at what happens when someone listens to a niche, builds around it, and refuses to ignore the momentum. Today's guest, the bagel ambassador himself, Sam Silverman, takes us behind the scenes of how BagelFest went from a 300-person room in Bushwick to the epicenter of modern bagel culture, and how the Growth Lab, the industry mixer, and a whole lot of proof of concept thinking are reshaping what's possible for specialty bakers everywhere. If you're a bakery owner, a culinary creative, or someone sitting on an idea you're scared to test, you're going to want to lean in. This conversation might change how you think about community, scaling, and what it really takes to build something that lasts. Let's jump in. Welcome back, friends. I am super excited to be joined today by the bagel ambassador himself, Sam Silverman. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kimberly.
Welcome in. So we just met in person again for the second time. We met in Vegas the first time at IBIE. And then you invited me to Bagel Fest in New York, and I was so excited to come. It was so much fun, so impactful. I think I was looking at it from a completely different lens than a lot of people. And I was like, there's so much community here. It didn't feel like a conference or a convention or any of the other food things I've been to. I was like, this just feels like a bunch of people who love the same thing all in one space. I sat in all the seminars, and I was like, oh, people need to know that this exists. So I'm excited to welcome you to The Perfect Rise. We're going to dive right in. So Bagel Fest started as a 300-person gathering and is now the world's premier bagel event. From a business standpoint, what were early indicators that this idea had real scale potential?
It started with the idea itself. So in 2017, I realized New York had never had a bagel festival. And I came to that realization because I'd been going to all these other food festivals around New York City, and I loved bagels, and I wanted to go to the next event.
Mhm.
And I looked up to buy tickets, only to discover it was not only not coming up, but it had never existed in the history of New York City. And I thought I must have been missing something. Like, there's no way that could be possible. There's a pickle festival, there's
Right.
a hot sauce festival, a coffee festival, but you're telling me the most iconic New York food does not have an event to celebrate it? I started asking around. I asked people to help me find what I was missing. And every single person that I talked to was blown away that it didn't exist. And to me, this was the first inkling that there was business potential here. When you talk to people and they just assume that this
Mhm.
thing is already in the world, like, okay, like clearly it makes sense.
Yep.
The first event that we did in 2019 was the entire goal was just a proof of concept.
Okay.
Sure, this made sense through conversations, but are people actually going to show up? I invited 100 friends and family, plastered posters around the neighborhood in Bushwick, started a Facebook event, and I wanted to see, would people be interested in attending an event where we brought in bagels, cream cheese, coffee, drinks from all over the city and got to taste them side by side. And to my surprise, we had, as you mentioned, 300 people show up, most of whom were strangers. So the fact that these were people who were coming not to support me, but because they just wanted to go to this event, check mark, proof
Mm.
of concept complete. The following year, 2021, we took a break during COVID. 2021, when we came back, the next marker that we were trying to pass, the next benchmark was attendance. So could we turn it from a 300-person event to a 600 to 700-person event? This, to me, was what success would look like. And to my surprise, we had over 1,600 people who came to eat, taste, and celebrate. And not only that, We had sponsors who saw the lineup of incredible bagel makers that we had curated and wanted to pay to be a part of the event and a part of the community. And this was really when I realized there's serious potential here. Enough so that I started to plot leaving my corporate job to do bagels full time.
Wow. And that's a lot.
I'm sorry.
It's so good because I don't think a lot of people are like, I'm really passionate about this thing. And then they skip over the proof of concept part before jumping feet first into it. And I'm like, but how do we know people actually want this? Right. And so the fact that you were like, okay, no, wait. They want it, and I'm gonna give it to them, and Imma leave my job in order to give it to them. So let's talk about that for a second. What did you do first operationally? If somebody's listening, they're like, "I've done proof of concept. I know that this thing will work." What did you do to get this off the ground?
So BagelUp is the business
Okay,
that produces BagelFest, NYC bagel tours, bagel making classes, so like BagelUp is kind of the business. So
got it.
do you want to focus on BagelFest or do you want to talk about BagelUp as a whole?
I kinda wanna talk about both. So,
Okay.
let's start with which came first?
BagelFest came first. It all
Okay,
started with BagelFest. I never knew that BagelUp and the tours and the classes and all this thing was going to come later.
yeah,
That all came from just being in the bagel world, in the New York City tourism world, and seeing that there was a pizza tour and then copying that, frankly,
yeah,
and copying and pasting that. And then on the tours, people kept on asking, to learn how to make bagels. Like, okay, like let's figure out a bagel class. And it's just, and then from the bagel classes, we get people who come because they want to open a bagel shop or
mm,
integrate bagels into the bakery. So it's like, okay, let's start offering consulting services. So it's just been like a snowball of different things, listening to our customers, our clients, the community, what they
yeah.
want, and then designing products and services to meet that demand.
Okay, let's start with Bagel Fest. What was the first thing you did operationally to, like, make Bagel Fest a thing? Like, how did you go through that process? Did you have a team? Did you do it all yourself?
The very first thing I did was started an Instagram account, which sounds silly, but keep in mind, I had zero connection to the bagel industry. I had been
Mhm,
working at a hedge fund. I was in finance. I didn't work in bagels. I didn't even work in food. I was just a passionate bagel consumer.
uh-huh,
So to throw a festival is by nature a very community oriented event. I knew I was going to have to get buy in from the community. And to get them to do something for me, I knew I had to do something for them
mhm,
first. People are reciprocal. I wanted to add value to this ecosystem. And the most natural way for me to do that was to start an Instagram account where I would review different bagel shops, talk about bagel content, talk about news, and most importantly, highlight these bagel shop owners, the bagel rollers, the bagel bakers, the managers, the people who actually make it happen.
mhm,
Because frankly, at the time in 2017, that wasn't really happening. Like, sure, like, Instagram had come along and food influencers were taking place, but it wasn't this as saturated as it is today. And especially within the bagel world, like no one was focusing on bagel shops. So the very first thing I did was I wanted to build a reputation as the bagel guy, the bagel ambassador, as I ultimately got coined. And that's how it all started. I spent 2 years building relationships in the bagel industry, mostly by creating content. And that's where it all began.
wow. There's so much goodness in that. Because I'm doing the podcast and I get to talk to so many people, this feels like one of the first times that it was, like, community first and not business first, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And I personally love that idea, like, when people are like, "Well, I can't grow my social media," and I'm like, "'Cause you haven't built a community." Like, you're creating content, but who are you creating it for? Who are you getting to buy into the thing that you're doing? And I think that that is such a powerful thing for entrepreneurs to understand, is that don't let social media run you, you run it. and use it to build that community, to find the people who love the thing that you love. Well, 2017, we started this. 2019, we have the first Bagel Fest. We take a break in 2020 for COVID. 2021, we're back, 1,600 people show up. So at what point did you start Bagel Up in 2021, or did this come later?
It came later. It came
Okay.
after the 2022 Bagel Fest. So 2021, very successful, but almost killed me. Like I was working a full-time job
Mhm.
and I was planning what turned out to be a 1,600 person festival on top of that. My fiance, she's now my fiance, she was my then girlfriend, now fiance, future wife, is was really my only support and team at the time. We had because we had no idea.
Yeah.
We had no idea. I didn't have a team. I was funding all of this from my corporate job salary. Like I had no real experience planning a 1,000+ person event. Like I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And it was so hard that it truly like almost wrecked me. And so I made a vow that before the third annual Bagel Fest in 2022, that was my line in the sand. I was going to leave 3 months ahead of time to just put all of my focus and energy on executing the third Bagel Fest, and that's what I did. And to my surprise, so I basically my rationale was okay. Bagel Fest 2021 was profitable. If I double the days, if we go from a 1 day event to a 2 day event,
Mhm.
double the profit.
Mm.
Guess what? Did not work like that at all.
Mhm.
It more than doubled the costs, but it did not double the revenue. It
Mhm.
really diffused people across 2 days. And instead of getting to 3,200 people, we had about 2,200 people, but split across 2 days where I had to pay the venue for 2 days. I
Yeah.
had to pay the staffing for 2 days. Everything was more expensive. Everything was more competitive because we had been coming out of this COVID environment. So there were tons of other events and
Mm.
travel, and people were making up for lost time. And so that was to have taken the leap of faith and left a very cushy corporate job, you know, 6-figure job and benefits, 401k, all that good stuff, and to step off of that diving board and go right into the deep end, and for it to not go to plan
Mhm.
was very, very difficult emotionally, financially. But I'd taken the leap and had to figure out, okay, what are we going to do next?
One of the things that I think people don't understand about business is that your mindset will make or break you. Like, it doesn't matter if the proof of concept works, if it's great, but if you're like, "Well, this didn't work, so I'm not gonna do it," then the dream dies before it even took off. What is behind the thought process of, "Not only am I gonna do it again, but we're gonna be successful when we do it." Talk me through what that was like going through in your mind.
Yeah. So we just have to learn and get better and make continual improvements. We collected a lot of feedback from our customers, from our exhibitors, from our at that point by the third Bagel Fest we had a small team and
Mhm,
figured out what worked, what didn't, and planned to make adjustments the following year. But we had a little bit of runway. You know, I'd built some savings from my job in the corporate world, and I knew I had a year and a half to figure this out. And I wasn't going to give up just from, the very first thing being a little bit bumpy. But it was a lot of communication and reflection. Those were the two things, was just learning as much as we can from the people who are part of our community and who
mhm,
want us to succeed, and then committing to making those changes in the future years. And in the meantime, starting, to run tours where I'd copied Scott's pizza tour. So Scott Wiener is the pizza expert in New
mhm,
York City. He started running pizza tours. It must be close to 15 years ago, and has built a very successful business all around showing people the pizza industry in New York City and what makes it so special and great. And I saw that, and I saw no one had done that for bagels, and I said, okay, it works for pizza. You think two New York foods. What do you think? You think pizza and bagels? All right. Well, I'm just going to copy Scott. And I took his tour and I told him that at the end of the tour. I said, Scott, I'm the bagel guy. I'm going to do exactly what you did. And to his credit, he was the most generous, the most helpful. He was an open book. He it could have gone one of two ways. He could have said, "Great, good luck, see you later."
Mhm.
I'm competition, but he was the complete opposite and said, "Whatever you need, I'm here to help you. Let me know." And has been a great mentor and a guide and someone that I've been able to kind of look up to. So that was really helpful, and that kind of kept us going, kept me going. At that time, there was no
Mm.
other tour guide but me, but kept me going the rest of the year, and it really kept me in touch with the bagel community because all of a sudden, on a daily basis, I was running around New York City, bringing tourists and bagel enthusiasts and bagel makers into their shops and buying their goods and promoting them on social media. It allowed me to keep the pulse on what was happening in the bagel world.
When I got the poll, like literally a day after Bagel Fest, I was like, "Whoa, I've never gotten anything this fast." Number 1. And then
Really?
2, the questions were so different. And I was like, "This isn't the average run of the mill, did you like my event or not?" Like, y'all were asking what worked, what didn't work. Are you a bagel enthusiast? Are you a bagel shop owner? Are you, someone who sells supply? Like, who are you? Why were you here? How did you feel? And then tell me what you wanna see. And it is clear, like, now this makes sense to me why the feedback form was written the way it was written based off of the 2022 one, where it was like, "Okay, how did we go wrong and how do we do this?" And I wanna highlight that because I think this is where scary part of entrepreneurship, you have a feedback form, but then you don't actually read it. And it's like, but you need to know
Oh,
people are saying.
oh yeah. I mean, we read it in great detail. Our team pores over those responses. And, Bagel Fest was amazing. It
Yeah.
was so great, but there's always things we can do better. And those are the things that we focus on, for better or for worse, is like, okay, how do we get it from an A to an A plus next year?
Yeah.
And but it's critical and it's really difficult. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I have a fragile ego. Like, opening that survey for the first time, it causes physical anxiety. Like, I
Mhm.
seize up and it's difficult to do, but it's so important because if you don't know what people's reality is in experiencing your product, your service, your event, whatever it is, then you can never make it better. And I'm extremely lucky that we have such a passionate community that
Mhm.
gives, by and large, respectful, constructive criticism and feedback that has helped us evolve every single year.
I'm wondering if from feedback, is that what helped you guys start launching things like the Growth Lab and the Inner Circle Industry Mixer?
100%. So the industry mixer is something we introduced last year as a way to help industry professionals network and get to know each other. And the
Mhm.
Growth Lab was a brand new event this year that came out of feedback from up and coming bagel makers who wanted to be a part of the weekend, but we couldn't figure out how to slot them in because they're not big enough, mature enough to be an exhibitor at Bagel Fest. Nor does it make sense to put someone who started a year ago
Yeah.
in the same room as a Utopia and an Essa and these shops that have been doing it for decades. And so it's been like several years of trying to just understand who's coming to the event, why they're coming to the event, and then what we can do to give them what to add value to their lives and
Mhm.
make it a worthwhile trip. And Kimberly, when I started this, I didn't know that people in the bagel industry would want to attend. I approached this purely from a consumer, a bagel lover's perspective. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like I know, yeah, I didn't expect to get sponsors. I didn't expect to get industry professionals from all over the world
Mhm.
fly in for this. Like, it still blows my mind that that happens. But um, so as we've gotten more and more of those people who are really some of the most passionate, they get the most value out of it. It's like, okay, what can we do to create more value for you? And that's just been an iterative process of listening to them and trying to design things that work and give them what they want. And ultimately, like you said, it's like community. So, like, for us, it's facilitating connections. Like,
Mhm.
that is the point of a community. It's to build bridges, it's to build a network so that we can support each other. A rising tide floats all boats. But you got to know people in order to be a part of that.
Agreed. I think being able to see things behind the scenes a little bit, like to be at the mixer and to tip in at the very end of the growth lab and then to be able to hear people talking. I think that was what was helpful for me. Even though I wasn't able to experience the full day because I flew in that day, but listening to other people talk at the mixer about like, okay, so when they talked about XYZ, we're gonna do, and people were there with their partners and they're discussing, here's what we're gonna adjust when we get back, or even for them to be at the point where they can understand there is a place for me in this industry, even though I'm new, like there's still a place for me. And
Mhm.
I think that in itself was super helpful. And then of course, everybody I met on Saturday was like, oh my God, you were there last night when I got there on Sunday. You just built this little community of people that are like, did you taste this? Did you go over there and have this? No, 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 no. Let's go back. Let's go back. Like you got to go over here and get this. And I learned so much about bagels in 48 hours. I just did not know all of these different things are a part of it, and everybody was super welcoming. If there was a question, you were getting an answer. Now, if you understood that answer, I don't know. But then somebody else would be like, okay, wait, wait, wait. Let me break this down to you. As I sat in the room and learned how much chemistry and formulas are going into this, right? For you to come at this from a consumer perspective of, I just like to eat them, to be able to sit in and learn how this is made. Like, dude, I just like to eat bagels. I had no idea that this is what I needed, but those industry professionals were pouring their hearts out inside of all of those different classes. So kudos to you guys for pulling the right people. They absolutely were telling us how bagels are made, what messes it up, how do you scale your business. And for you to not have come at this from that lens in the very beginning, that's incredible. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to just make a point that bagels, and I think bakery businesses in particular, can be lonely, isolating. Like you are in your bakery running your business. You are in the business
Yep.
so much, and it's so hard that you rarely have the chance to step outside of that, to take a step back and appreciate everything that you do, let alone commiserate with other people who are in similar situations as you. And I think that's why this has built such momentum, is because we've niched down to an extreme degree. We are focused on bagels, and like that is another important lesson for an entrepreneur, is like find your niche. But when you take these people who are hungry for connection and you give them the platform to do that, like of course you're going to see sparks fly. So it's been really magical.
Yes. And that's a great way to describe what the weekend was like. You've seen, and in us talking about bakeries, you've seen hundreds of bagel businesses up close. What differentiates the bakeries that are truly ready to scale from those that aren't?
Ultimately, it comes down to the team. Um, and what I learned this year, because we had a panel on
Yep.
scaling business, the the main takeaway is you need to have your standard operating procedures documented and trained. Have your staff trained on those. Saying that it's the team is trite. Standard operating procedures is a must.
Mhm.
When you scale and you go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, all of a sudden you can't be everywhere at once. You can't control the entire process from start to finish. You have to trust people. The only way to trust people is to be able to verify and hold them accountable. And
Mhm.
the only way to hold them accountable is to have a written, agreed upon contract of this is how things are supposed to run. So the number one, yeah, and I'm learning this, on the fly too, like through
Yeah.
conversation. It's like the number one thing that has unlocked businesses to be able to scale is having their operating procedures written out, documented, trained on, and held accountable to, and having an entire feedback loop
Mhm.
that builds on that.
Yeah. Agreed. Totally. That was a really, really good panel. All the panels were great. For me, I always looked at it just from the perspective of what if I get hurt and I can't do this thing? Somebody else needs to do it. But to sit in that room among others, it was like, no, if you want this business to grow, you have to understand you can't grow by yourself. And so your team has to know how to be you when you can't be there. And how else is that gonna happen? You gotta get it out your head and get it on the paper. And I was like, "Oh, that's a very different way to look at the SOP."
And the thing I'll say is the main reason I've heard people don't do that is, "Oh, well, things change so much. It's just a waste of time. As soon as I write it down, it's already out of date." Well, it has to be a commitment. It really has to be a philosophy and a commitment to an ongoing process of
Mhm.
writing and updating those procedures. Um, and not just so people can mimic what you do, but to allow them to put their own spin and their talents and their creativity towards it. As long as they're hitting those targets,
Yes.
you're gonna find a different path to get there. But that's totally okay. And guess what? It might even be better than the way you've been doing it. But as long as they get the outcome that you're looking for,
Mhm.
that's what it's all about.
When I used to work retail prior to my bakery life, um, we would get an SOP update maybe once a month. So, like, it go take this page out of your SOP and put this new page in because the process did change. I can imagine now with AI and all these tools that will allow us to do business more effectively, you just might need to update that SOP. And I think people do a disservice to come up with the excuse as to why to not do it instead of just updating it after you do it.
Mhm, mhm, 100%.
There's definitely, some expansive growth happening in the bagel world. What trends or shifts are you watching that bakers and founders should pay attention to right now?
So, the bagel is this it's associated with New York City, and
Mm,
it's associated with a New York style bagel. And the trend that we're seeing is people are coming up with their own spins on it, their own manifestations of what a bagel is, and they're using the equipment and the ingredients that are available to them in their local market. And that so combine like the bagel and then using the bagel as a vehicle for a sandwich are really the two reasons that are driving this significant growth.
mhm,
Um, you sprinkle some social media and new marketing channels on top of that, and boom, this is a powder keg that is blowing up right now. So it's I always tell people there's 1,000 ways to make a bagel, to make a sandwich, to run a business. And there's not one right way to do it. It's
mhm,
just what's right for you. And we're seeing just unbelievable creativity coming from all corners of the world. I mean, there's bagel shops in South Korea, one that just sold for $160 million to a private equity firm. There's bagel shops in South America and Europe and just like truly all over the place, and they're all catering to the local palates of their communities.
mhm.
So there's not one right way to do it. You just got to get started and figure out what makes the most sense for you and what do you like and what are your customers like and what are your friends and community like and try to serve that.
I think that is really as you were talking, I started thinking about conversations I was just kinda listening to or chatting with the people that were from Copenhagen. And, from all over, no one was really trying to copy another person. Everybody had their own spin. I just got my own sauce on this over here, like, this is how we're gonna do it. This is what works in England, and this is what doesn't work. Like, here are the things we've tried, this didn't work. And the different types of rapid fire questions in all the panels were hilarious to find out what the bagel operators or bagel owners liked or didn't like about bagels. I didn't even know there were flat bagels. "What do you mean there's a flat bagel?" And they're like, "The scooping out of the bagel." I was like, "We scoop bagels now to, like, put stuff in there?" I had no idea that you could do so many things. And the schmear, it was my first introduction to the schmear. I was like, "It's just cream cheese." And they're like, "No, the schmear is important."
So much deeper than that.
I had no idea. But for people to understand, like, this is what we do, and then you share that with your community and the things that make sense for your community, that this is how we do things here because we can't get this New York water or we can't do these types of things, over in California. Like, the bagels are gonna be different. And I think being able to listen, learn, and taste the differences of the bagels around the US, around the world, because Copenhagen was there. Like, then that kinda changes your perception of this is not just a bagel in the grocery store. Like, this is more than that. There's something more here than that, and I think it's super important for people to understand. Being you is gonna be the secret sauce. Like, you don't have to compete with somebody else. Just do your thing.
100%. Could not agree more with that. And it occurred to me as you were talking, people might only have had a bagel from the grocery store before. And I want to encourage anyone where that's the case, go find a local artisan baker who's
Yes.
making them fresh on site. The difference between one that was made that day using locally sourced ingredients and the care and attention that only an artisan could, versus the stuff that you get on the shelf, which was mass produced, loaded up with sugars and preservatives, and maybe frozen. It's been weeks from when it was produced to when it actually gets onto your plate. Like, it's night and day. If that's the only bagel you've ever had, you've never had a real bagel in your life. And that was true for me before I moved to New York City. Like I really so I just there's levels to it, and, if anyone is bagel curious, go find your local bagel shop and give them a try, and ask them for what's warm. Don't just go in and ask them what's warm, what's freshest out the oven. That's gonna be the purest, best bagel that you can possibly get.
Now we have to do that. I'm gonna have to ask. I wrote down all the ones that were in Atlanta. I was like, "Oh, we're coming to the Beltline." Okay, yeah.
Emerald City Bagels, shout out Emerald City.
Yes, I'm
They
headed
had
to
the
see them.
most amazing display I've ever seen in
Did.
the 6 years of doing Bagel Fest. I loved it so much.
Clearly, the children all loved them because they all had the hats on, and I was like, "Kids getting these hats from?" And then I was like, "Oh, this is where the kids are getting it from." And they're like, "You're in Atlanta, you have to come to the store." And I was like, "I'm coming to the store because if this is your display, just here, I must walk into your establishment."
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so I can't wait. And see, and you're like growing businesses from New York and Atlanta, like it's a whole thing.
If I can just tell a quick story there,
Yes.
that is how I got connected with Starship Bagel, who ultimately have won, they won the best bagel competition this year and a few years ago, is because they had made it onto the Food and Wine list, of like the best 25 bagel shops in America, maybe 4 years ago. And someone took my bagel class from Dallas, and I told them to go check out Starship Bagel. And Oren, the owner, reached out to me after, the person went in and said, "Hey, I took this class with the Bagel Ambassador, and he told me to come here and check it out." Oren was so blown away that I had recommended a place that I'd never been to, that
Mhm.
I'd never even, but I just like I'd seen and understood their quality. Like, that's what sparked our relationship and has have them become this amazing. I mean, they were up for a James Beard Award last year as a result of some of the attention and press and recognition that they've received. And I don't know. It really is a community thing, and community doesn't mean geographically local to you. It just means who are the people in your life around the world that you have shared interests, shared things in common with, and so it's a privilege to be able to share the stories of these amazing, really hardworking bakers around the world, um, for everyone that comes through.
Yeah, because there's like that paid advertising, but then that word of mouth. Eh, like you cannot in no way can you beat everybody's like, "Did you go over there and taste this? Have you seen" that type of thing where it's like, "Look, we're all here doing incredible things and like go over there and taste that." The bagel pizzas, oh my god. I was just like, "Y'all are actually making pizza, like right now in front of me."
Mhm,
They're like, "Yeah, it's hot.
mhm.
Blow it's hot. It's not
Using a
heat."
bagel dough, so it was a bagitza. It wasn't just a regular pizza or a pizza bagel, it was a brand new thing. So this is the sort of creativity that
Yeah.
you'll see. Sheeted bagel dough that has been flattened and then made into a pizza. It's incredible seeing the boundaries that are being pushed right
Yes.
now in the bagel space.
'Cause who thought to do that, you know? Let's just see if it works. And then it does. This conversation has been incredible. So before we bounce, what I want to ask you is if you could give one piece of advice to a baker or a founder in the early stages, somebody who does not have a roadmap the same way you didn't when you came in, what would you tell them?
It sounds so obvious, but it's just put your stuff out there. Just start to do things. Analysis paralysis is the number one killer of a great idea, of a great business, of a passion. You overthink and you overthink and you overthink and you never take action. You never do. Look, the truth is, I tried a dozen different businesses, ideas, whatever, and failed before I landed on BagelFest. But I never would have gotten there had I not tried those 12 failures ahead of time. So if you have that spark, if you have that entrepreneurial spirit and you want to get out there, but you don't have that roadmap yet, the only way you're going to create it is by putting your yourself, your spirit, your product, your service into the world, getting that feedback and iterating and growing from there. So it sounds like the most simple thing in the world. I guess Nike has coined that, right? Just
Right,
do
just
it.
do it.
But like it really, it's so true. It's so true.
Yes. Start to stop. I tell people that all the time. Well, whatever is stopping you, start it anyway. Do it
There
anyway.
you go. There you go. That's
It's
perfect.
only crazy till it happens.
That's perfect.
And like just do the thing. Sam, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for agreeing to join me on the podcast. I
My
feel
pleasure.
like I've learned everything about you, and there's probably still so much more to know. And I can't wait to see how this grows, to see what Bagel Fest becomes next year.
Well,
So
thank you
thank
for having me, Kimberly. This was amazing.
you.
Love talking bagels, love talking community, and really appreciate all the work that the RBA is doing to help highlight and promote bakers across America. And yeah, keep up the good work.
Will do. And for those of you who are listening, make sure you look down in our show notes where you can connect with Sam. You can come join the Instagram community. We'll make sure all of the things and all the places you need to go to be a part of Bagel Fest are listed down below.